Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Road to Purpose podcast, episode 8. My name is Angus, and guys, I've done it. I've messed up my recording schedule for the first time. I missed the published date for this podcast. I was aiming to release one once a week on a Monday. That's the day I like to go live with the podcast, and I've missed it. And so, yeah, that's not great. And to tell the truth, I've actually not sat down to record an episode of this podcast for 2 weeks now. We're now on Wednesday, the 24th of July. And yeah, it's been about 2 weeks since I sat down to record an episode. When I arrived in this apartment, I recorded 2 episodes in that first week. And I've got to be completely honest, my motivation, my mental state, just about everything over the last 2 weeks has been pretty diabolical. So I'm going to be honest, this is going to be more of a journal style episode. This podcast was going to have some episodes which were like with things that I've learned. And I mean, this is kind of stuff that I've learned, but it's more of like a journal style, journal entry episode, because I want to be completely real about what's been going on and my feelings towards this trip, towards going back to the UK and everything. And I'm going to be honest, this all basically stems from being extremely lonely. In Colombia for like I've been in Colombia now for about 4 months, but I've never really had like a solid like group of friends in that time. In the time I've been living in Colombia, I've been living in Medellin and Bogota, and I've have like friends, and yeah, you know, like I just don't have like a solid group of people that I can rely on. And I'll go into this a bit more detail in a second. But basically, the last couple of weeks, I've just been struggling with motivation for just about anything. The thing that I've been doing really well with is fitness, and I've been training more than I have done for about 2 years, and I've been doing things like running, long distance running, and then also like daily gym sessions. The schedule I've got at the moment in the gym is really good, and I mean, I'm into my final week now in Colombia before I head home. And if there's one thing I can be really happy with, is that my physical condition when I get back to the UK is going to be really, really good. So yeah, I've been trying to push to do like long distance running and things like that, which is something new for me. I never really enjoyed that before. I only used to like weight train, but I think having a balance of like a cardio activity like that, like longer distance running, I'm talking about like 10Ks, 10 to 15Ks. I haven't done a 15K yet, but I do want to do one. And I think, yeah, spicing up the activities I've been doing and stuff, it's been really good. But that's really been my main focus. So for those of you who aren't, who don't know from other episodes, basically a couple of months ago, I accepted a job in the UK, and I've just been kind of winding down stuff. That's kind of a lie, actually. I've been kind of winding down with my client. I did that. I finished off with my client for my business in the last like week or so. And I mean, there wasn't a lot of work to do. I'm going to be honest. It's been like odds, bits and bobs here and there. And ever since I accepted that job offer, my motivation's just been like through the floor to do anything software related. And it's been bad and worrying me a little bit as well. Like, I've got all this free time and I don't fill it very well. If I'm going to be honest, I'm glad that I kept the exercise habit, but I kind of expect more from myself. But I really don't know what's been going on. I just kind of had like a low mental state, I guess, over the last, if I'm being honest, probably about three or 4 months, being extremely lonely, not having like a good group of friends. And the truth is, I'm extremely excited to be going back to the UK to be with my close friends, to see my family. Even just talking about that now is actually making me like a little bit sentimental about the whole thing, because it's been so long. It's been so long since I was home. It's been so long since I was around friends who I have like a really like strong rapport with. And honestly, I really miss it. And so I think this overarching thing that's really been affecting my mood has definitely sapped nearly all my motivation. I expected to want to learn things when I was out here. Like, I remember when I first planned to go to Colombia, I was going to keep going learning UI UX design. That hasn't really materialized. I haven't really invested much in that. I mean, there's still time. I've got about a week and a half until I start my new job. But yeah, like the motivation is not there. If I'm being completely honest, it was pretty difficult to even sit down to record this podcast. I was just lazing around and I was like, no, come on, can't write this afternoon off. So I want to talk about ways that I approach to dealing with bad mental state, because everyone goes through bad times, right? Actually, over the last year, I've had some family events that happened in my life that have deeply impacted my mental state, which I haven't really spoke to a lot of people about. I have a few close friends who know what went down, and yeah, I think I will open up on this podcast and talk about it a bit more because I think it's really, really useful. But that, and then also this situation of being alone for a long time, has taught me a lot about how to deal with bad mental state. And I feel a lot stronger in a way, and more prepared to deal with in future when times get hard, based off of some of the events that have happened and some of the disasters I've had on this trip, which I mentioned in episode 2 of this podcast. I'll go over them again. But basically, I feel a lot more prepared for some events in future. So this is kind of a episode of me just riffing in a way about ways that I can go about dealing with high levels of stress. I think the main one, as I mentioned in the start of this podcast, is that the main way that I deal with stress is by exercising. And the reason that my exercise routine has just gone over the last few weeks is because I've been experiencing high levels of demotivation, high levels of stress. But something I will never, ever let slip in that situation is my discipline related to fitness. It's something that I'm committed to. I take a lot of pride in I love playing sport and things like that, and I never want this level of fitness I have. I mean, at some point it will dip naturally as I get older, but I want it to be the best it can be, really. And obviously I'm not at the best it can. I want it to be at a good level, basically. So if you're experiencing a tough time of low motivation, and maybe there's a lot of drama going down in your life, let me talk about what happened with me. About just over a year ago, my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and I'm extremely close to my mum, and this was a really, really tough time. I struggle to even talk about it because it affected me a lot. We had a lot of hope through the whole time, and actually after the first round of treatment that my mum went through, she ended up getting the all clear, and now she has to go to regular tests. She had colon cancer, and it was a very tough time. Remember, I'm not going to talk too personally about certain people in my life because out of respect, but I saw certain members of my family respond to it in different ways. I responded to it in my own way, but I can remember being particularly distraught around the time that the diagnosis first came out. I am someone who tends to talk quite a lot to my friends, so I told a fair few friends. But like close friends, people who I've known for a few years. And so, yeah, this kind of big event in my life, I feel extremely grateful that my mum managed to make a recovery. She's doing great, and I'm so excited to see her. But yeah, and she got the all clear in about January or so. So yeah, this was something that was a very taxing time emotionally, and also that followed on by this digital nomad experiment that I've been running over the last 7 months. And I could call it an experiment because it kind of is. I've not really done anything like this before. So I did a 2-month trial of that in October and November last year. And then this bigger trip, which is I've now been away from home for 7 months, which is way too long to be solo traveling, especially if you're not living in a place with a good community. Let me explain something. So when I was living I've lived in Spain and Bulgaria. When I was specifically living in Spain, I lived in Barcelona and Santiago de Compostela. And in both of those places, I had a really good group of friends, like a group of people who I'd spend a lot of time with. I haven't found that here in Colombia. And that is the thing that makes such a huge difference. If you meet people who are staying for a fixed amount of time in a place, it makes staying there so much better, like, to be honest. And honestly, so for the first like 2 months, maybe that's generous, maybe a month and a half in Colombia, I wasn't really feeling the loneliness. I was working very hard on my business. And then I landed my first client, and it was good at first. And then I started to it really started to kick in. Well, maybe it was about a month actually. It was about a month of like not really feeling too alone. And then it really started to all sink in at once. It was around that time I started talking to my family, and I was like, look, I'm feeling really lonely. I'm trying to meet people. I did have some friends who I'm really grateful for the time that we spent together, because I speak to them very openly. I got some very mixed responses to my kind of, it sounds kind of pathetic, doesn't it? Like, oh, I've come to the other side of the world. I'm so lonely. No, I think it's valid. You move to a new place. It's so important to have to build a circle of friends. It can take time. And one of the main things I really don't like about the digital nomad lifestyle is this concept of, it's kind of the beauty of always moving, is that you keep seeing new places and you experience new ways of life. But to be honest, like you don't really connect to anyone really well. Let me give you an example as well. I've dated a few people on this over this last 7 months, some in Spain. And recently I've been, this is another reason that my mood's a bit low, especially this week, is that I've been seeing this girl for not that many dates, to be fair, but like she seems pretty cool. We get on very well. And I'm like, oh, I'd really like to see where this goes. And it's like, well, now I'm leaving, like I've got 1 week left. And it's like, it's not sustainable. It's not a sustainable way to live. And I was on Instagram yesterday, death scrolling, as has been the theme for the last few weeks, which is something I'm trying to stop. So I was on Instagram and I saw this Daily Stoic post. It was a Seneca quote, and it said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." And I've been everywhere, you know what I mean? Like, not everywhere, but like not in one place, constantly moving. And that is so true. I'm nowhere. Like, I've got no deep connections with anyone apart from my family, obviously, and my friends back home. So like I just like disappeared for that time. And I mean, life's moving there. I'm going to go back, and some of my friends are engaged. One of my best mates is moving house. Another best mate is moving house. And the situation changes, and like I've just like opted out of like 7 months of like our friendship in a way, and it feels kind of strange. I mean, all in search of an experience which was, I don't regret, but it's left me feeling a little bit hollow, especially after the last 3 months of being in Colombia. Now, that's not to say that there's anything wrong with Colombia, or I regret being in Colombia, or anything like that. It's just that this has been my experience here. It's just been difficult to make close connections, and every time that I do, it's not there are some cultural differences, that's for one. So if I meet locals, there are some cultural differences, which I'll run through in a second. But also, like, if I meet other travelers, sometimes they're moving on, sometimes they're not going to be here for that long, and so it's easy to get that feeling of being completely isolated. And I'd say that's pretty true. I'm in this really nice apartment, and I kind of wind away a lot of the days and not really achieving a whole lot. And my motivation is so low. And I think it's because I'm quite an extroverted person, and I'm not getting that level of socialization that I need to keep me motivated, because I feel much more motivated when I know at the end of the day I'm going to be like meeting up with someone, or maybe it's going on a date, maybe it's meeting up with some friends. And that's super important to me. And those connections are part of life. It's an important part of life. So let me just touch on some of the cultural differences here that I've noticed in Colombia. This is not me shitting on Colombia at all. I'd just like to make that completely clear. I love this country. I will be back here. I really, really enjoy living in this place. And it gets such a bad rap. Colombia's a great country. So let me touch on some cultural differences that have been slightly frustrating. because there definitely are. And I think if a Colombian came to the UK, they'd have a whole list of things that we do in the UK that are kind of odd. So the first thing is the people here, I think it's like a Latino thing, really. People don't really like to say no to plans. So if I suggest meeting up with a friend or something, they'll often tell me that, oh, yeah, we'll do that. So, like, in my head, we've got a plan. But in their head, they're like, I don't really want to do it. And I didn't want to say no. It's like kind of rude to say no, I guess. So, this is a very distinct difference. So, so I've had it happen a couple of times where, like, I thought that I'm going to be meeting someone or doing some activity, and it ends up getting cancelled last minute, or I just don't hear from them. I ended up getting stood up for a date for the first time in my life. That was not fun. That was through purely poor communication on her side. I mean, I did exactly what we said we were going to do, and yeah, she didn't turn up. So yeah, that sucks, by the way. I would not recommend that. And yeah, I think if someone's willing to do that to someone else, that's quite a large red flag. I mean, I did end up talking to her afterwards, and she told me the reason, and the reason seemed pretty valid. But this leads me to another thing: is that if someone can't make a plan, the Colombians and well Latinos tend to prefer to come up with some like cock and bull story as to why they couldn't come, as opposed to just say, oh, I didn't want to, or I was like asleep, or I'm too lazy. So like the classic one is family issues, because the family issues you can't really question that, can you? You can't say, if they say, oh, I couldn't come because I'm having family problems, you can't really dig too far into it without being really rude. So yeah, there are a few of these culture differences: flakiness, not turning up to plans. And in our culture in England, that would be considered extremely rude, but here it's not. It's normal. So I mean, it's just an incompatibility. I don't see it as an insult. Like, things that have happened here, I'm like, okay, like, it's part of the experience. Things don't run in the same way that they do in my country. But then there's a whole load of things I really like about Colombian culture that we don't really value as much in the UK. For example, the link between family. People really, really look after their family. They put their family first, and like, people are not afraid to like publicly announce how, like, if it's the birthday of, if it's like your mum's birthday or something, or the birthday of someone in your family, be like big like social media posts, be big parties and things like that, and all very like publicly. And I think that's really, really sweet. Not that it needs to be public, but you know, it's just nice to make that gesture to someone as important in your life. And I try and replicate it now. Like, if it's my mum's birthday, which it was a few weeks ago, you know, public Instagram post. I'm not going to be. There's going to be no shame involved. I feel like a lot of guys in the UK might think that that's a bit soft to be like, "Oh, happy birthday, mum! Really grateful for everything you've done for me over the years." But here it's like, no, that's the way it is, and that's something I really, really like. People put their family on such a pedestal, and yeah, I think it's beautiful, really. And the culture here is very, people value relationships a lot, and I will definitely be back from that for that reason. So yeah, as I mentioned, I've been seeing someone over the last like couple of weeks who I've been getting on really well with, and it's like, damn it, now I'm leaving. But she knows that, like, I know that as well, and it's like, oh, yeah, it just kind of sucks, because there would definitely, it might, from my end anyway, there'd definitely be potential for something like more than just like dating, you know. So yeah, it's been a bit of a weird few weeks emotionally. My motivation's been through the floor, and the more days that I'm not doing work and things like that, the worse I feel, because yeah, it's just like a compounding thing, isn't it? If you look back at a week and you go, I didn't really achieve anything, it's like, well, that's not good. And you're like on the other side of the world, unemployed. So you got no excuse. But at least I can look back at workouts, I guess, and say, hey, like, I stuck to a good fitness routine. And that's something that's super important to me. So yeah, you know, that's good. And one way that I tried to deal with the demotivation, which worked for short term, I just really struggled to stick to it, was creating like a daily to-do list. And wow, that's actually such a powerful tool. Like when I had the to-do list in front of me, I felt so much more motivated to tick everything off. And I think it's the similar thing to like journaling, where when you write down your thoughts, it like you feel less stressed about them. But with a to-do list, when you know everything like that you've got to achieve in the day is there, you know you're not going to forget anything, and you feel some kind of pressure to complete everything. And for me, the motivation was good. Like I was yeah completing tasks. I used it about 2 weeks ago for like a couple of podcast episodes, editing podcast clips, things like that, and works really well. But the problem is that I need to see that list more frequently. So maybe it needs to be my lock screen. That's something I need to try. I don't know if there's an app that's a really good app idea, by the way, a to-do list that automatically changes your lock screen every day. Does that exist? Might have to build that. That's really cool. It's so simple as well. Wow. Okay, so no one nicked that idea yet. So yeah, this is something that I would really like to like wake up in the morning, and then like when I tap my phone, see the lock screen, it would just show me like my to-do list. That's really cool. Easy to make as well, I feel. So yeah, it's been a bit of a rough few weeks from a mental standpoint. I've tried journaling to kind of deal with the demotivation. Hasn't really worked. Something that does work for me is getting out of the house to work in a cafe, but that's not really sustainable because then you end up, you know, eating loads of cake in cafes. And I always feel a bit, is this like nomad thing of like working from cafes, right? But I always feel a bit like inconspicuous when I'm like staying there for like hours at a time. It always feels like I should be buying more, and then I do buy more because I feel guilty. And yeah, then I just end up spending loads of money in cafes, and it's like, well, this is may as well just like pay for office space at this point, you know, like well, that's considerably more. But you know, like it feels I kind of feel a level of guilt for just like sitting in a cafe and taking up a table and just being there working, like writing code or something on my laptop. I shouldn't feel like that, but I kind of do. So that's something that works, like getting out of the house, getting out for walks, or just to work somewhere different. Obviously, socializing where possible, but I kind of have semi given up with socializing, apart from with a select few people because of the flakiness here. I meant to be meeting some English people this week for like lunch or something, but and they'll most likely turn up, you know. But yeah, in terms of locals, I I have local friends who are not like this, but there is like quite a lot of people who just flake out of plans like shamelessly, and it's hard to not see it as like a disrespect, as a level of disrespect. Because in England, it really would be like if I was constantly like flaking on plans with friends, people would stop inviting me, and that's kind of the point I'm at. I'm like, I just don't really want to even bother socializing, and then you become more alone, and it snowballs. It snowballs. I think you can all tell from this that I'm very much ready to get on the plane. It's been way too long alone. Just to reiterate, nothing against Colombia, nothing against Spain, nothing against that. These are countries that I've lived in: Bulgaria and Albania, beautiful places. But I'm just sick of being alone, and I could do with just the ability on a random night in the week to say, "Hey, mate," like to call up a friend and be like, "Can we just chat?" It's such a like underrated thing, is just having friends around to just meet up on the off, to go to the pub or go to a cafe or whatever, and just spend a morning together, spend an evening together or something, and just catch up, talk about some random stuff that you're both interested in. And yeah, like it's something that I'm really missing at the moment, and it's been absolutely ages since I had that in my life. So if anyone here is listening and considering the digital nomad lifestyle, if you're considering doing it on your own, I think I've mentioned this in this like the second episode of the podcast, second or third. Do it for a fixed time, but not like don't make the fixed time like 6 months, because it doesn't make sense. And I feel like if I continued doing this, if say I was like on the road for a year or longer, there would become a point where I was like starting to lose my mind a little bit. You can only be alone for so long. I mean, some great things that come out of being alone, like me sitting down to record these podcasts, and well, when it happens, which has been like I've done like this is the 8th episode, I think. Yeah, 8th episode, and you know, like this might not have happened if I'd been surrounded by more people, but there needs to be a balance. And the balance right now for me is really not there. It's like, it's such a mess actually. But yeah, I am someone who also values like time alone, but there needs to be a level of socialization with people you have good rapport with. So if you are considering being a digital nomad, I would really urge you to think about this, because the connections in your life are way more important than you think. And it's only when you're like not around those people all the time that it becomes really obvious. And maybe it's your family, maybe it's your friends, maybe it's your weekly football group. Oh my God, I miss my weekly football group so much. Like, I've got some friends in England, we play together like once a week. And I'm back in the WhatsApp group now, and I'm like, I just can't wait to get back and play some football, run around, throw in some horrible tackles. No, I'm joking. But I just miss that. I just miss going to these like things that seem kind of small when you're there all the time, but when you go away, you realize how much they meant to you. So yeah, that's a bit sentimental, isn't it? But yeah, so this has been a little bit of a summary as to why I haven't been so active on socials recently. I create like short form clips as well. The motivation to even edit short form clips, which is really not difficult, not there. The motivation to sit down and speak into a microphone for half an hour, 35 minutes, not there. And I feel like by breaking that trend now, maybe things will start to improve in the final week. I've got a list of things that I want to do in Bogota while I'm here, just to take advantage of being in Colombia. There's some food I need to try as well before I go. And just like there's some it is mainly food related, I can't lie. But there are just some things I really like about the lifestyle here, that like I want to go to a party where they're like playing salsa, bachata, reggaeton, because I can't do that really in England so much. It's not as available. It's a different vibe here as well. So I kind of want to go and experience that like one more time before I go. And then I think I'll pretty much be ready to head back and not travel for a while. When I get back to the UK, I've obviously got plans to socialize with my family and friends. And I want to explore my country a bit more. This is something I've realized over the last couple of months, is that I probably know Colombia and Peru better, and Spain better than I know England. Like, I've been to more places, like a more widespread places across those countries than I have in England. Like England, I've really like stayed in the south where I live, where I grew up, and I haven't really ventured too far up north, and never to Scotland even. And I need to go and do that because it's right on my doorstep. So being away is I'm kind of grateful for that, actually. Being away has really inspired me to go and travel in my own country, because the place is such a small country as well. And yeah, it's a great opportunity. But first things first, I need to save some money up, because I'm starting to run out of funds for the traveling as well. And it's just been so crazy. It's an experiment that I can't see myself doing again for such a long time. I definitely won't be going traveling again in the next year, I would imagine. Maybe for some like short like holiday trips, or maybe I'll come back to Latin America for 2 weeks or something on annual leave, or work in Spain for a month or something like that. But no like huge backpacking trips. Like also living out of a backpack for 7 months. I'm so used to it now, but I don't know how I've done it. I've only got hand luggage as well, and I don't know how I've done it. It's been crazy. Like, I have to like wear the same clothes all the time. I'm just ready to like get paid from my job, go and buy a few new pairs of clothes, and start to like stabilize my life a bit in England. Maybe definitely move out of my parents' house, which is where I'm moving back to next week. It's going to be a bit of a shell shock, but I'm ready for it. It's part of life. And then I'll be looking to move out as soon as possible, get a new car. That's one thing I want to do as well. It's just like have a few like adult things in one place. And yeah, it's just put the brakes on for a bit of traveling. And if there are any trips for like fixed, very short period of time, and maybe even not alone. I would usually travel alone, and it's starting to wear off for me. The flexibility is fun at first, but there becomes a point where you're alone for 2-3 months, and putting yourself out there to meet people all the time is quite exhausting. And I'm at the point now where I just don't want to meet new people here. I'm sure that will change when I get back home, because I spend time with the friends I've got back home, of course, but to meeting some new people in the UK would be cool, of course, as well. So I'm gonna round this off here. It's been very much like a journal entry. It's been a bit of me, like, I kind of guess it's been a bit of a rant. No, not a rant at all. Just a reflection over the last couple of months, and I just wanted, especially in the last 2 weeks, where things have been particularly challenging for me, and I just wanted to be real about it and talk about it on video, and talk about it on a podcast episode, because I have a topic which I want to talk about in the next episode, one which I've been putting off for a while, actually. And it doesn't feel right to go into that episode just like pushing down everything I've been feeling and my reasons for not wanting to even sit down to do this podcast. So yeah, it's good to air it out, I guess, as well. It's been nice to just talk openly into a camera about how things have been, and yeah, it's been a challenge, but I'm very excited to be back. And yeah, without getting too emotional, it's been one hell of a ride, and yeah, but I'm ready for it to end. Thank you for listening, everyone. The Telegram group, self-improvement Telegram group, Alternative Men Self-Improvement Telegram group. There'll be a link to that in the show notes or description if you're watching on YouTube. Please join. And if you haven't watched episode 2 of this podcast, where I talk about the personal manifesto, this is like one of my favorite self-improvement tools. I want to make use of sharing personal manifestos in the group to help people stay accountable and stay on track, and to just learn about people's goals, because I think that's very exciting. So if you're interested in making a difference to your life and moving yourself in the direction that you actually want to go in, definitely take the time to listen to episode 2 of the podcast, do the manifesto exercise, or even just join the Telegram group and we can talk about it. It'd be great. I'm literally the only one in there at the moment because this podcast doesn't have many viewers right now, but we'll give it some time and I'm sure it will pick up. Thank you very much for listening and, well, being an ear to listen to this story. And I hope maybe you took something away from this. If you're considering being a digital nomad, please don't go away for 7 months straight away. If you value your mental health, if you value, well, just the relationships in your life, to do a much shorter time, unless you're extremely comfortable with being alone. That's my best advice from this episode. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Ciao.